On the same day that Apple announced the iPhone 7, Sony made an announcement of their own, the PlayStation 4 Slim and the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, the PlayStation 4 Slim follows the same trend that Sony sets with all their consoles. It's the same internals in simply smaller form factor. On the other hand, the PlayStation 4 Pro is a real upgrade over the original PlayStation 4. Where the PS4 Pro makes its improvements is in the GPU. Both the original model and Pro feature an AMD Radeon GPU, with the Pro's GPU using AMD's new Polaris architecture. Sony's marketing this device as the go-to place for 4K content, but is this really the case? If we compare the new GPU to one on the market, it would be the AMD Radeon RX 480. The GPU in the PS4 Pro is essentially an underclocked RX 480, but for the sake of argument, let's assume it runs just as fast. For a game to be running at optimal performance, you need to have a frame rate of at least 60 frames per second. In order to see if the PS4 will be able to attain this, let's look at a couple of RX 480 benchmarks.
Lockdown disengaged. Here at the UAC, we take it off.
As we can see in the benchmarks, the RX 480 cannot play the games optimally at 4K. Now, the settings in these games are all at ultra presets, while the PS4 generally runs games at a medium preset. This would raise the frame rates, but not quite enough. I also included the 1080p frame rates since this is the resolution that most people will be playing at. At this resolution, the RX 480 can run the majority of games optimally. Now, like I said earlier, the PS4 Pro has a GPU that isn't quite as powerful as the RX 480, but it should have no problem running games at 1080p. Does this mean that the PS4 Pro will not be able to do 4K gaming? Not entirely, just not native 4K. It could, on the other hand, upscale the game from 1080p to 4K. There's no real issue with this since 1080p still looks great, just don't go expecting native 4K 60 frames per second. Now, there are two more problems I have with the PS4 Pro. First, it does not have a 4K capable Blu-ray drive. This means it cannot play 4K Blu-rays. This is a hardware deficiency and is not something that can be patched later in with a software update. It can still do 4K streaming through Netflix and through Sony's own streaming service, but if your internet isn't fast enough, you won't be able to enjoy 4K video. Lastly, it's been announced that in games with online play, if the original PS4 or the new Slim model can't run the game at 60 frames per second, then when playing online on the PS4 Pro, you will be locked to the same frame rate as the lower end models, even if you could run it at a higher frame rate. The reason for this is that Sony says that it would give PS4 Pro users an advantage over other players. This is true, but it also means that you won't see a difference in using more powerful hardware. Now, I don't want people thinking that I'm saying the PS4 Pro is going to be a terrible gaming machine. At the price of just $399, you should be able to get a machine that can play 1080p 60 frames per second in almost every game. Now, just don't go expecting 4K 60 frames per second. Make sure you set your expectations appropriately, and you won't be disappointed.